Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Bream Fishing Project. In this episode, we headed down to Australia with the guys and girls from Bream Masters South Australia to review their round four, which was the Akuma round on the Onkaparinga River. One of my most favourite names to say, Onkaparinga. Anyway, it was a great little round. I'm looking at the photos from the weigh-in. Josh Bland seems particularly happy with himself. In any case, I'm going to roll the intros and we're going to get straight into it. Here we go.
Welcome to the Bream Fishing Project. This is where you need to be every Tuesday to find out all the latest tips and tricks to help you target bream on lures. You'll get to hear from some of Australia's elite bream competition anglers and see how they were able to achieve their results in competitions around the country. Now, here is your host, the 2019 Hobie Kayak Fishing World Champion, Andrew Deeth.
All right. First and foremost, a big shout out to all those guys and girls, well, actually guys, who have joined the Bream Fishing Project Collective. I appreciate your support and I really thank you for joining in. For those of you who haven't joined, I guess it's a place where you can become involved with the little community. We've got some side projects going on and we're trying to improve everybody's bream skills as a collective. And I think if you want to maximize your time on the water and really up your skills over a period of time, this is a great place to start. Anyway, if you're interested, go to brimfishingproject.supercast.com and you can join in all the fun there. I hope to see you along. And our next live stream, well, it's actually probably been released. So we're probably on to between live streams 2 and 3 by the time this one goes to air. In any case, if you want to join in, go in there, hit subscribe. You only have to do it for 1 month. If you don't like it, you can just unsubscribe. So there you go. All right. This was another great little round. Like I said, Josh Bland coming in first place. Notable mention to Gavin Howard dropping one fish, I think, for 1.13, taking out Big Bream and fourth place. How cool is that? All right, so all the tides and things for this one. So just 26 in the fish activity wheel. So bit of a tough one. High tide was at 7:39 at 2.07, running down to low tide at 1:38 p.m. at 0.68 of a meter. The minor bite period was 9:25 through to 10:55 a.m. All right, let's get straight into the angler interviews. Here we are with Ryan. Here we go. Okay, so first up in third place, we have an angler dropping 3 fish for 1.88 kilos. He's been on the show before. I'd like to welcome back to the Bream Fishing Project, Ryan Ottens. Welcome to the show, mate.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me back again. Always a pleasure.
Mate, you've got a nice little bag there, 1.88. So, mate, they're reasonably solid bags in this event.
Yeah, this year it was good. We had 2 really good bags, which beat me, unfortunately. And yeah, I snuck into third with a decent enough bag. There's definitely been some big fish in the Encore over the last few weeks, and it's good that people managed to catch them in the comp day as well.
Yeah, definitely. I was surprised when I looked at the bags, like in almost 1.9, but then 2.33 and 2.67, pretty decent bags of fish. So that was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, the other guys had some belter fish. I just really had sort of mid-30s. Other guys had a couple kilo fish, and another guy that I think he only got the 1 fish, but it was massive.
Yeah.
He had almost 1.1 kilo fish.
Yeah, Gavin Howard, I think 1.13. Nice, a solid fish.
Yeah, he was telling everyone he'd only had like a 33 centimetre or something like that, or just legal. We saw the size of it, we were like, that's not just legal.
Well, there you go. I did look on the Facebook page and his smile told another story. So there you go.
That was a big fish.
Very good. All right, mate. Did you get a chance to get down there and have a pre-fish leading up to the comp?
Yeah, I pre-fished a month prior, every week for about the last 4 weeks prior to the actual comp day. So I had a bit of an idea of I had enough to sort of give myself a game plan. I wasn't confident in my game plan, but I just sort of thought what I found out, this is probably my best chance of catching good sized fish. I knew just legal fish wasn't going to cut it. From the fish that had been getting caught throughout the place, you needed to catch big fish in order to actually place or win. So I was more so, I wanted to win it. So I wanted to chase the big fish and not just get those 3 fish, which would just to get a bag.
Fair enough. Did you find a trend between upriver, downriver?
Look, I never really fished more than halfway up in my pre-fish. I didn't need to. I was getting fish and some good fish. I didn't need to go any deeper. So I sort of just stuck to what I knew and what has worked for me well in the past. And my spots at, I actually won this round the last 2 years in a row, and in the same spot, the same technique. And that was working over the last month well enough. I thought I could catch fish there, and I couldn't. So
Yeah.
that sort of threw a spanner in the works. But yeah, I had a few backup plans.
Okay.
But it was weird. I hadn't, out of all the pre-fish this year, last year was tough, but the years before that were way better. The fish were a lot more active, and there'd be sessions where you catch 10, 15 fish, big ones too, like high 30s leading up to it. This year, the best I did was a 3-fish bag limit for pre-fish, but only 3 fish. The only time I caught more than 3 fish in my pre-fish, the rest of those fish were smalls, like 20 to 25 centimeters. So I thought I was confident people were going to catch fish, but I didn't really think many people would be upgrading their fish.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. Well, leading into day one or into comp day, tell us about how your day went. So I think it was a bit interesting.
Oh, it sucked. It was bad. So I went to my spot. I've only pre-fished. I got 2 young kids, so I've really been only fishing gentleman's hour. For me to get up and fish sunrise means I've sacrificed the missus getting up at 5:30, 6 a.m. when the first kid wakes up. So trying to do the right thing. And yeah, I've been fishing 9:30 starts. I've still been doing okay. So I was kind of excited to get to my spot on sun up to see, I really thought I was going to do well. It was glassed out, and it's only probably maybe a kilometre from launch. And it was glassed out, and it was going to be glassed out all day. And I was like, oh, this could do we try for the surface bite? Do we go straight for what works? But yeah, I threw a bent minnow first cast, and I could see I was getting bubbles. I'm like, oh, sweet, we could be on here today. And that was all I saw for about the next 6.5 hours. It was tough. I was putting in cast after cast after cast. My kind of theory, my game plan was kind of spend more time with my lure in the water than moving around changing spots.
Mm-hmm.
And I know in that spot last year, I had fish later on at 12 p.m. and 12:30 or 1 o'clock, real late in the day. I was catching fish, so I was really confident that I could at least get 1 fish relatively easy in that spot. I had caught fish in that spot probably the last 3 trips there, just sort of randomly going through. And yeah, there was nothing. I could see them. There was fish on the sounder, and yeah, so I could see enough fish that I was happy to stay there for a while. But then it was
right.
I'm like, oh, I can't just stay here. There's just nothing's going on. The week before, I actually tried a spot around the corner, which I hadn't fished for quite some time. And at the end of the day, on my way back in, I'm like, I could see fish, and I turned around and I caught 2 bream and 2 casts there. So that was kind of my backup. And they were good fish. One was a 34, one was a 37 centimetre fish. So I'm like, this is good here. That's going to be my backup plan. So I pulled the pin probably earlier than I thought I was going on my original spot, just because it was just nothing at all. Nothing at all. And I know there was a guy fishing a couple hundred meters behind me, and he got nothing either. So I'm like, probably not. Let's not stick with it. I was umming and ahhing about. I hadn't seen anyone head all the way upstream yet, and I was like, oh, do I? I know you've seen on social media some bigger fish being caught down there, and I'm like, haven't fished there yet on pre-fish, so sort of thought, I'll just stick to my backup plans. So I went back to that other spot where I caught 2 fish the week prior, and just couldn't get them. I could see them and just couldn't get them. So it's really frustrating when you can see all these fish, because there's a lot of fish in that system, and there's big fish as well, and just not being able to catch anything, just frustrating. So yeah, and then
what do you do? If you fish for 6.5 hours, were you cycling lures? Were you trying deep, trying shallow? How did you try and sort that out?
Yeah, so I had noticed sort of in the Onkaparinga, there's kind of, if maybe say the river's like 20 meters wide, right? It's probably about 6 or 7 meters on one side of the river where it's a bit deeper, say 2 meters, right?
Yeah.
And then the other side of the river is where I like to fish. It's really shallow, up to only 30 centimeters to 50 centimeters. I like to sit in that 50 centimeter range and kind of like go through there. And I noticed the 2 weeks prior, I was catching a lot of fish in that middle area, which I normally don't fish. So I was kind of mixing up the areas a little bit as well. So not just fishing in that 50 centimeter range, I was fishing in that 1 meter range and then going into that 2 meter range as well, because a lot of people do catch fish in the deeper section. But yeah, as for lures, I had 4 or 5 lures I was cycling through that I'd caught fish on, and I was just swapping rods, hard body, surface to begin with, shallow diver after that. Played just money for me in there.
Mm.
Tried some plastics, and it was just nothing. I couldn't even get a tap, couldn't even get anything to keep me interested. So I was hoping by this point that I would have at least had either a small fish or a tap or something to keep me interested to stay in that one spot, and just nothing. So that's when I went to my backup spot, did the same thing, tried on blades where I was getting them there the week before, nothing. And I'm like, all right. So I went back to my original spot because it was getting around midday, and previous years I've actually caught really good fish around between 12 and 1:30, that last hour to 2 hours of the day. Like I actually got really good fish there. So I'm like, maybe they were going to turn on, maybe not, who knows. I went back there and it was just nothing. And you start hearing big fish caught at the front end, big fish caught down the top end, and I'm like, I could have had the top end to myself. No one went down there. And then you start like just all those competition conundrums like running through your mind of, did I stuff up? Did I make the wrong choice? And blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, look, nothing's here, nothing's working. I'm just gonna. I was thinking, what are my options? I had about maybe 2 hours left. It's about midday. I'm like, so I had said to myself, it was a bit of a Hail Mary. So I went back downstream, so back to launch, then past launched, where one spot I've caught fish in the last few weeks prior, when I said, I've caught some small. I know there's fish there, but I've really only caught some small ones. I'm like, I wanted to weigh a fish. I just wanted to get one in the bag at this point. And yeah, because I know I had no chance at Angler of the Year, and I already heard that Josh Bland had caught a fish. He only needed to catch one fish to secure him that spot. He caught it. So it's just like, well, I still want to kind of do well. And I didn't weigh a fish in West Lakes in round 2, and that really stuffed me for the whole. As soon as you don't catch a fish in one round, you've got no chance for Angler of the Year. So I'm like, I just needed try to at least get points and at least position myself in a good spot. So I went to this spot and I was there, and it was 12:30. So I had 90 minutes before comp was done. It was 2 o'clock. You had to have your key tag on the board by 2 o'clock, otherwise you start losing points, right? But I'm 5-10 minutes from launch, so I'm not too stressed. I can kind of sit there till pretty late. I was sitting there. There's 1 or 2 other guys kind of in the spot I wanted to, and I was just slowly working my way up to it. There's fish everywhere. I can see them. Nothing. I was fishing probably for about an hour and 15 minutes. It's like 1:45. There's 15 minutes before my key needs to be on the board, right? I haven't had a tap. I'm like, this sucks. I'm like basically admitting defeat internally. And then all of a sudden got a tap and had a bite. And I'm like, ooh. And then recast it back in and caught my first fish. I'm like, oh, sweet. And then it was probably about maybe 12 fish in about 14 casts. It was
really.
It was ridiculous. Poor Craig Richards, the Victorian bloke, mate, or into Victoria, New South Wales, can't remember where he's from, but he's from interstate. He made the trip down. Poor bastards sitting there watching me just poling fish in front of him. But I think he had a fish. I'm not sure, but I'm like, as soon as I caught my bag, I'm like, yeah, mate, start throwing lures. I don't care. Like, get yourself some.
Yeah.
But by that time, I think it sort of had slowed down. But yeah, like that bite window was intense. My GoPro batteries were already flat, so I had no footage. Like it was just like, at the end of the day, everything could be cruising. It was just, it was real. It was intense because I'm like, if I catch a fish here, because I wasn't like I didn't put any cull tags in them or any. I had some, but I'm like, I caught one fish and I'm like, there's 10 minutes left. I'm not going to be upgrading here. I'd be happy if I catch. But then it was like, I'm like, shit, I should have used my cull tags because, but in the end, it was like a lot of the fish, they were pretty much all legals. But I think my best three went 35 centimeters, 34 centimeters, and 34 centimeters. So there was a lot of 31 to 33 that I just threw them straight back in the water. So
yeah, okay.
But yeah, and there's 5 minutes left and just hit the jets back to the ramp and that was it.
And that was it. And what they end up taking?
Just soft prawns.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, there you go. That's an interesting story about persistence. Like the amount of times you not catching a fish till that late is unusual, but often you might need your third one and you just keep casting. You might get it on the last couple of casts. But you've
I'll never give up. If there's time to fish. And I know people fish comps, they kind of fish for fun and socially as well. And people pull pin early and they cruise in, they're happy. Like it's 12 o'clock, I've caught one fish. 12 o'clock, I've caught stuff all, like who cares? Here, go chat with the boys. I'm like, nah, I've got to catch a fish. Like,
yeah.
My sporting background, man, like if I ever gave up, I would just be like, I'd be so down on myself. So, yeah, I put a lot of pressure on myself when it comes to competition time. So if there's a minute to fish, I'll be fishing that minute for sure. And it just shows these are the sort of things because you never know when these fish are going to turn on. I don't know if they would have turned on in my other spot, but I knew at this area I was really close to launch, so I could maximize fish time because I only needed a couple of minutes to get back. So that was kind of the plan. I could, like I said before, I wanted to have my lure in the water as much as I can. And yeah, that paid off at the end of the day, big time.
All right, cool. For the comp, what sort of leaders you running down there? Can't remember what you did last time.
I've only ever run 6 pound leaders there.
Yep.
It's like usually the water looks like chocolate milk. So it's not like you're going to be spooking anything, but it's been super clear this year. I've never seen clear water there before like this. I've only been fishing there for 4 years, but yeah, I've never seen water this clear. And that's to do with like at the top of the system is a reservoir. They normally flush water in around this time of year. This system every winter, I think I mentioned before, there's a brim closure. I don't know if it started in September or starts in October, but there's a brim closure because the brim actually come in every winter or at the end of winter to come in. They start coming in around August and maybe July, August, because they come in there and breed, right? So at one, they actually, Old Noarlunga at the South Road Bridge, I think you're not even allowed to fish past there just to let the brim breed. So, but there's been no big rains. There's not been much rains to come in and really fire them up. Obviously, everyone knows that fresh water will help fire up the brim.
Yeah.
And the reservoir's only at 30%, so they haven't released anything. The last few years, there's been plenty of water in there, and they dumped some of that out as well. So that makes things murky. But this time round, yeah, I was fishing some 3 pounds. I had one rod at 3 pounds, 2 rods at 4, and I think one at 5.
Okay.
But yeah, and I think I caught them all on one of my 4 pound rods.
Yeah, right. And with them, like, is that river? So you're using a soft prawn? Is it a system has a lot of prawns in it or not?
I wouldn't have a clue.
Okay.
I wouldn't have a clue if there's prawns in there. I don't know. The very first 3 years ago, I did quite well one session there on them, and it's always kind of been in my back pocket there.
Yeah.
And like they weren't eating anything. And like no matter what lure I was putting out there, I could see there was fish there. There's so many. And I guess just because it was a smaller size lure, maybe that's what got them going. They were willing to eat the small lure as opposed to the bigger lures. I'm not sure. But it was working really well. I think Craig threw a plastic in the same area and didn't get anything, and I was still getting some. So maybe it could have been the colour of the lure, the size of the lure. I was trying to throw other creature baits, pro lure, clone prawn, didn't get tapped, like in the same spot, straight like at the same time. I think my prawn got smashed, and instead of swapping the lure, I could just grab behind the rod and I was getting nothing. So I put another prawn on and bite straight away. So
yeah,
I think I could have just been lucky with lure choice at that time as well. Brim man, bastard of a fish, like so.
Yeah, no, that's it. I found that with those, I found you have to set the hook. If you don't set the hook, sometimes they don't go in. Like they're a really strong hook, so once it's in, it's staying in. But you got to make sure you put it in, and also the perch like them a lot.
Yep. Yeah, nice. Not many of those down here.
No, well, we get a few of them, and sometimes, yeah, they really get into them. All right, mate, for third place, do you remember what you got to take home?
Yeah, we got a good little bag. It had, I reckon it had some clothing in there. I think it had really good lures. You get Pro Lure is obviously a sponsor of us. We get really good lures from them, hard bodies and plastics. I reckon I had some, obviously some stickers from Hobie and the crew, LDX Sunnies, I think,
Nice.
some vouchers, and maybe a face buff.
Yeah, very good.
That's gone by memory. I'm not sure there was much else in that, but it was, price packs for Bream Master Series have been fantastic. So
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. All right, mate. So one more thing before we head off. Is there anyone you want to give a shout out to or say thank you to?
just the Bream Master crew, again, their events are just awesome. Like, they are, again, good crew running the place, and the contestants, everyone's, you go there and it's a good day. Whether you're catching fish or not, everyone's helping each other out. Everyone wants to get each other, help them on the fish, and there's no stuffing around on the day. It doesn't drag out at the end of it. Like, it's so smoothly run with the guys that are helping out. There's nothing. You've gotten up at Sparrows and spent the whole day on the water, and then you don't have to worry about it dragging out at the end of the day, and that's always a good thing. And that just shows you how well it's run by the crew. So they've done, they work hard behind the scenes and secure all the sponsors and get good prizes and run a good comp. So thanks to them. Otherwise, it wouldn't have happened.
That's right. Yeah, I think those guys do a great job. But if they don't put their hand up and do it, then you don't have a competition. So
yeah,
very good. All right, mate. Well, look, congratulations again. Good luck in October, I think, in Port River.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll get to have a chat to you again.
Hope so. Hopefully I got second place in the championship last year, so I'll be really pushing for first this time around.
Oh, well, you'll have to fight some people off on that.
I'll fight them, all right.
Very good. All right, thank you again.
All right, thanks for having me, mate. Appreciate it.
All right, fishing.com.au, your one-stop bream lure and tackle shop. Pick up the latest tackle, including Muscle Vibes, Cranker Crabs, OSP Bent Minnows, Z-Man Plastics, EKG Lures, and Daiwa Rods, Reels, and Tackle. Same-day shipping. Shop where the world champion, the Australian champion, and the current ABT champion shops. Fishing.com.au, online or in-store at Shop 18/29 Kiora Road, Miranda. All right, so there's a couple of things on my mind at this week. The Hurricane Skimp 70. Now, I still haven't got my hands on these yet. Probably tomorrow, just after I record this. But I think these might be a great little lure and a really good place to start. So definitely jump in on those and get yourself a couple of those. And the other thing that's got my eye is I can't wait to get the Daiwa Infeet Monster Rolling Crank Deep Runner, or DR. I think these are going to be a cool little lure to really, I think they're just going to climb over structure. I'm not looking for them as a deep running lure, but more as something I can pitch into some gnarly structure and pull it through without getting hung up. Anyway, you can get those at fishing.com.au. All right, so coming in a second place, we have an angler dropping 3 fish for 2.33 kilos. Coming in second, I'd like to welcome back to the Bream Fishing Project, Ben Harrison. Welcome, mate.
G'day, Deethy. How you doing?
Mate, here we are again, mate. There's a couple of times for you now.
Absolutely. I'm pretty stoked about this one.
Yeah, mate, it was a good little round they had going on there, and a couple of good bags. Like, anytime you get over 2 kilos is pretty cool. All right, mate. So tell us, how'd you go for pre-fish? You get down there and have a bit of a look around?
Yeah, I've been sort of putting a bit of time and effort into pre-fishing the Onkaparinga for a while, probably the last 2 months before the comp. I got down there twice on the kayak. First time on the kayak, I headed towards the mouth of the river and started throwing surface lures because it was just one of those days, and ended up like bagging maybe 10 to 15 fish on surface.
Wow.
Which was absolutely awesome. Circled around, and there's a sort of a bit of a flat as you head down towards the front, and I'd been trying to figure this flat out for a while, and as I come up over this flat, there's some deep holes, and as I come across, I saw 2 or 3 schools of bream go over this flat. There would have been close to 200 fish in this. As I was sort of cruising across them, wasn't too overly fussed about having spooked them, and worked my way down to the front, and then sort of worked my way back. And I've been trying to learn how to fish grubs because I'm not very good at it, for starters. and plastics. I'd sort of lost my knack with plastics because I'm more of a hard body fisherman. So I grabbed a packet of the Berkeley grubs, the gulp grubs, in the better oil and the bloodworm colours. And I'd been throwing those on a 1/8 jig head, the Daiwa Bait Junkie jig head. And I happened to pick up a couple of really good fish during just pre-fishing.
Okay.
And the second time I got on the water for pre-fish, I decided to head up the other way, right up to the other end of the river, up near Old Norlunga, to try my luck up there to see what sort of make a decision on where I was going to head during the comp. Headed up there and had a very similar result.
Right.
But on my hard body lures, like on the Hurricane Fat 37 and on the Pro Lure S36, and just off the edges up there, and they got some decent fish. So I was a bit hit and miss on what I was going to do on that stage, but I had two sort of plans to stick to. But then on Thursday nights, when I drop my daughter off at swimming down there, I can go and walk the bank for an hour and a half. So I used to drop her off at swimming and then get off the bank. I spent every Thursday for the last 2 months just walking this one section of the river, and I actually figured out a pattern
Right.
with the gulp grubs. So that was sort of my plan, and that was down towards the front of the system. So I just stuck to my plan and decided that's what I was going to do. Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. All right. Well, let's roll around to comp day. Tell us how it went for you.
Right. So everybody took off from the start line, and the majority of the field started heading straight up the river, up towards the Old Norlunga way, which is about an 8K paddle roundabout.
Ouch.
I'm not sure exactly where everybody went, but there was only two of us that headed down towards the front, and that was myself and Josh Bland, as you'll hear.
Yeah.
And I got to the first bend from the start line at the scout hall. I already had my grub ready to go in the bloodworm colour. Put a cast out, didn't get anything. Put my second cast out, and there's a really deep hole that comes off the flat. And you can see it in the water, and there's a big drop off the flat into a deep hole. And I just cast up onto the edge of that, and I just slow rolling these plastics back to the kayak, like very slow rolling. And all of a sudden I got clunked, and I'm like, oh, this is all right. And I'm looking, Josh, I'm on, having a bit of a stir. And when I pulled the net out and netted it, and I'm like, this is actually a decent fish. Like it was, so I didn't even bother measuring it. I just like chucked it on the scales, and it weighed, I think on my scales it was 1.07 on my scale. So I was like, yep, there's a kilo fish straight in the well, second cast.
Which
I was pretty happy about.
Good start.
Yep.
For that system, is that a really big fish?
It's a good fish for that system, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, okay.
I had a bit of drama after that, because when I turned around to put it in the live well, my battery on my live well decided to shit itself. And
Right.
so
Ouch.
I ended up having like a protein shake there. So I'd sculled the protein shake and then rinsed out the shaker, and I was using that to bail water into my live well all day, to be honest.
All day. Oh, that's rough, man. That's rough.
Yeah.
Right.
Wasn't in it because I'd tested the live well and it was all working, and then the battery just decided to go at that moment, and that was it. So
No good. Okay. So you got a kilo fish in the well. Your battery's dead. Tell us about the rest of your day.
at that point, I decided I'd work the whole flat all the way up out towards the front, so up towards the South Road Bridge, and then all the way around, and then up to the Walk Bridge right up the front. So it's a good maybe 2K of the section of the 1 to 2K section of the river.
Mm.
Didn't really get anything. So I sort of worked, taken about an hour to get up the bridge, and I threw on a blade, and I started blading on this sort of deep hole edge. And all of a sudden I clunked a little 31 centimetre fish. So I was kind of happy. That was my second fish. Not really much else, like just sort of worked my way around, kept working my way around the flats all the way up to the Walk Bridge right down near Southport for absolutely nothing. As I'm working my way back, I clunked another little 30 centimetre fish, which went straight into the well. So that was my 3 fish. And at that point, I was kind of like, that was nearly 9:30, 10 o'clock by the time I had those 3 fish. So it was roughly around sort of like 9 o'clock by the time I had that second fish, and then about 9:30 by the third. At that point, I come back to the South Road Bridge, and then sort of worked the flat, and I was watching the tide because the tide started running out at that point, and so I was pedaling back up against the tide, casting up into the current, and then just slowly winding the plastic back, and then all of a sudden, clonk, I got another fish, and it happened to be an upgrade, about 34 centimetres.
Okay, it's getting better.
Yeah, and so I chucked out one of the 30-centimetre one out the well and put the 34 in, and sort of kept working my way along, and just slowly during the day, and just sort of worked the edge and just slowly worked down, and plonk, got another one, 35 I think it was.
Yep.
And so then kept working down, then worked back down to the corner, and at that stage it was getting close to sort of like nearly 11:30, 12 o'clock, and I saw Ryan Ottens come up sort of into the corner there, and as far as I knew, there was another bloke there. I can't remember what his name was, but he was just on the other side of me, and I'd sort of been watching him for about an hour. At this stage, I'd sort of clunked about maybe 8 fish, and slowly upgraded, like with about 8 fish over that space of time. And then sort of, I saw this guy on the other side, and I was watching him, and he was coming in the opposite direction to me and casting into the current, down current, and then bringing it back against the current. And I'd sort of been watching him for a little while, and it was getting a bit painful. And I sort of yelled over to him. I said, "Look, I'll give you a bit of advice. Just turn your kayak around and start casting the other way." And he didn't have any fish in the well, and he turned around and he started casting the other way, and all of a sudden he clunked a fish and put it in the well. And he's like, "Oh, thanks," So he's pretty excited.
Yeah, nice.
He's pretty excited about that, and he sort of manoeuvred up and positioned himself in this little hole up near the bend, and just kept casting up there. I think that's where he got his fish from anyway, when I'd seen him. And so he ended up weighing in 1 fish for the day, but he was pretty grateful for the advice on he said, "Oh, I could see the fish in the river, and they're facing this way." And I said, "Just because they're facing that way doesn't mean they're eating that way." I said, "They don't like the little lures or little fish coming back up against the strong current. They won't eat it." And when he turned around, he actually started to get a few bites and a few hits, and managed to pick up a fish, so which was good.
Exactly, and he didn't get a donut, which how good's that?
That's good. I always like giving him a bit of advice. I mean, I probably could have given him a little bit of advice early, but I don't want to. I knew I had a pretty reasonable leg, so I didn't really want him to beat me.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Oh well, hey, at least you helped him out with one, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So
So, and then I think I ended up. As I said, I kept working that sort of flat all the time, like for the whole day. I didn't move off it. I just kept pedaling up and then just coming back with the current, and then my last fish of the day, I think, was a 38 tipper, which was good, and I was pretty happy.
Yeah.
So I was like, at that point, I'm like, maybe I've actually got this. This is decent. And then as I pedaled up, I saw Ryan. I said, "Oh, have you got any fish?" And he's like, "Yeah." He goes, "You wouldn't believe it. It was like 1 o'clock, and I just banged 3 fish like that."
Wow.
Bang, bang.
Wow.
Had nothing up until then. So, yeah.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting. Tell me, with your grubs, are you sort of slow rolling them and keeping in contact with the bottom, or you keeping it mid water, or how that kind of look?
No, I'd sort of they're keeping in contact with the bottom, so I'd sort of cast out, give it time to hit the bottom, and then, like, as I was slow winding it, I could feel it sort of like clunking into the little pockets of weed and the bed and the floor, and then all of a sudden you just feel like it just stopped, and then like bang, the fish was on. So yeah, it's very, very rolling. It's not it's not a technique that I really like doing all that much, but I found for some reason it worked in that system, and I picked that up when I was doing a lot of those walk in the bank free fishes that I did. Just because I'm not out in the sort of the depth where I am in the kayak. I sort of, when I was casting out, it was going into the channel, but it was only going about halfway into the channel of the flat, and then I was sort of, you could feel it just like touching the bottom as it was going, and then it'd come across the top, and sometimes it would come back with a bit of weed on it. You'd pull the weed off, back out, and but it was very sort of slow, monotonous, slow rolling of those grubs, but it seemed to work. They seemed to love it. So
Definitely. And you found the 1/8 was enough to get it down there reasonably easily?
yeah, yep.
Yeah, okay, cool. Cool. All right. Well, I think that covers all the fish you caught. Was there any heartbreak in amongst that? Did you drop any?
Not really. It's just one of those days where everything went well. Like that first kilo fish, I think that's actually the first kilo plus fish I've actually weighed in during a comp. To be honest, I don't think I've actually weighed one over a kilo before. So
Oh, there you go. How good's that?
yeah, it is. It was pretty good.
Was that big brim for the comp?
No, it wasn't actually. Gavin Howard managed to pull a 1.13 kilo fish.
He did. He just got you. There you go. The Billy Pro Big Brim. How about that?
Funny bit is when I came in, Josh had a kilo fish as well. I probably should let him talk about that one, but I actually pipped him by like 10 grams on that one.
Right. I'm looking at the photo here on the Brim Master South Australia page, and Gavin looks pretty happy with it all.
Oh yeah, yeah. He was pretty stoked with that fish.
Definitely. Definitely. All right. And look, one last thing before we move off the fishing. What sort of leaders we run of the day?
I had one rod spooled up with 4 pound on 4 pound braid on the 4 pound fluoro on the braid. That's just the Daiwa, well, the red one, the X link, I think it is.
Yep.
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 One with 7 pound and one with 4.
Okay. And did you find a difference? Was we getting more fish on the 4, or you don't really know? Or?
Be honest with you, I don't really know whether I sort of like was switching up between the two rods, so it was kind of like, because one had one colour on and one had the other colour on, and never really noticed really that much of a difference. They just seemed to go for either one.
Okay. So I had you down with the bloodworm colour. What was the other colour?
The better oil.
Better oil. That's right. You did say that. All right. That's perfect. Well, either way, mate, it was enough to bring you back with a pretty decent bag of, what was it, 2.33, I think. What'd you get to take home for that? What'd you get to take home for second place?
I think it was around about $150, and there was a prize pack that had a TT redback rod and an Akuma reel in it.
Nice.
Like reel is. And then there was a Hunter Water Sports voucher, a Sports Fishing Scene voucher, bunch of Hurricane lures and Pro Lure lures, and yeah, it was a pretty good little pack, that one.
That is a good little pack, mate. Did you get some hard bodies to bring to Foster?
I did.
Very nice, very nice. We can donate them back to the earth.
Absolutely. I'll pretty much guarantee I'll do that.
Fair enough, mate. All right, mate. So listen, one more thing before we head off. Is there anyone you want to give a shout out to or say thank you to?
Yeah, just my usual sponsor of Searing Tackle. Just recently, it's been bought, like Rob Searing actually sold Searing Tackle. So it's actually been taken over by Shane Hunter, I think his name is. I can't remember what his surname is, but Shane's taken over Searing Tackle, and I'm staying on board with them for now. And yeah, so I'll see how that goes. And yeah, I'm looking forward to working with him. So.
Very good. Very good. All right, mate. I reckon that's fantastic. Mate, thank you for coming on again. And, mate, I'll see you in Foster.
Yep, no worries, in a couple of weeks.
In a couple of weeks. All right, thanks, mate.
No worries.
All right, if you're in the market for a new fishing kayak or looking at making some upgrades to your existing kayak or possibly looking at kayak fishing tournaments, then HWS is the place to go. They have a full range of Hobie kayaks, stock the latest kayak accessories, and are really dialed in when it comes to the best kayak fishing set up for the casual fisher and the tournament angler. hws.com.au, online or in store at Shop 3/638 Pacific Highway, Belmont. Free delivery on Hobie kayaks across all Greater Sydney, Central Coast and Hunter. All right, so the things that I'm into at the moment with these guys is if anyone just wants to sort of get in and get one of the cheaper end of the market, then the Hobie Passports are the way to go at the moment. At both the 12 and the 10.5, they're a really decent kayak at a cheap price. So under $2,000 for both of them. So it doesn't matter what you need, you're going to get to have a go on those. One thing is the stocks won't last on these. They won't be here forever at this price. They have been reduced from sort of 28, 2,900 or 26 and 2,900. So massive reduction. Definitely worth getting in and having a look at these. I've seen guys fishing comps on them. but definitely a great entry-level kayak if you want something new that's going to get you out in the water with pedals so you can have a really good time catching some fish. hws.com.au. All right, so in first place, we have the current Brim Master South Australia's Angler of the Year. On this competition, he dropped 3 fish for 2.67 to put him in first place and take the Angler of the Year title. I'd like to welcome back to the Bream Fishing Project, Joshua Bland. Welcome back, mate.
Thank you for having me, Andrew. Always a pleasure to come on.
Mate, you've done really well this year. It's been a great year.
I'm absolutely stoked for this. I mean, it's kind of an unreal feeling. I think we all strive for this sort of thing, and then when it happens, it's I don't know, just it's rewarding that the effort is kind of pays off.
Yeah, this year for a lot of people, there was a couple of challenging rounds, and I think you were one of, or the only one that caught fish all the way through.
Yeah, I mean, it just goes to show, like, it's kind of obvious, right? But to take out these AOY titles, it's just super critical to be consistent at putting fish in the boat. And like, I think Westlakes for a lot of people seems to be the deciding factor, at least it is for me, when it comes to chasing the AOY title. And that one fish that I got in the Westlakes round early on, when I landed that thing, I went, oh, okay, that's the hard bit done for the entire season.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. It can come down to one fish. But having said that, you did it and you took out the title for the year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's just a good feeling, and I'm glad to be back for the second time taking it out. So, yeah.
Very good. All right, mate. The Onkaparinga, or the Onk, mate, tell us, did you get down there and have a bit of a look around leading up to the competition?
Absolutely, I did. Yeah. So the Onkaparinga is my local, and up until this round, I feel like I just kept getting a lot of consistent sort of fourth places and didn't feel like I was doing my local place justice. So I put in a bit of time land-based because I normally fish it throughout this winter to spring period. Most of my pre-fishing was done land-based rather than in the kayak. And so what I'll do is drive to different, because keep in mind the river is kilometers long. And so I just take the car down and bounce between different spots. Don't fish for very long, but just try to get an idea of where the fish is staged in the river system, because it will vary throughout the year and year to year. Like each year is different, right? So they're going to be found in different, not every October are they going to be in this one spot. It really is dependent on rainfall and other factors. So you're pretty much starting from scratch each year trying to work out where they're going to be. The fish in this system are very transient, so even day to day, it can change. So I made sure to put in the time to sort of work out where the bigger fish were all going to be holding. And I think that was kind of the key to success on the day.
Okay. And if you're targeting them land-based, what sort of lures are you running? Are you running plastics, hard bodies, blades, or what are you looking at?
Yeah. So we'll go into this with what I was using on the day, but plastics are pretty much my most comfortable bait for bream in the onk. And so I'll experiment with other lures, throwing cranker crabs and a variety through mussels a little bit, just experimenting. But the main thing I'm doing is fishing what I know on pre-fish to find the active fish. And so I just fish plastics most of the time. And yeah, it depends on current, really, how detailed we go with jig heads and things like that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. So let's roll into comp day. Yeah. Tell us a bit about your day. Did you head upriver, downriver, and how'd you go about catching your fish?
Yeah. So I was stressing to the max up until I got onto the kayak, because I felt this pressure of like I had to perform in my local. So the night before, I didn't get all that much sleep, and I was just trying to work out what am I going to do, because I know where I was pretty confident at the time that I knew where I could get my bag of fish, but I didn't think that I wanted to fish it first because it's a long way to go. So what I actually did is I went towards the front, because about 5-minute paddle from launch, there's a bend that's got deeper water and a flat right next to it, which is usually pretty productive. And I was hoping just to have a look, because you could fill your bag with some good fish on that corner, and it saves you taking a trek right up to the top. And so Ben and I were the only people who went that direction. And I peeled off behind him a little bit early. And that was a bit of a mistake, because he pulled into the right spot where I should have gone and pulled a kilo fish straight away. Oh, man. But that's what you do. That's the plan gone right. And so I didn't get any fish there. Decided to pull up and I changed spots and went upriver instead.
Okay. All right. So tell us about your first fish. How did you break the ice there?
Breaking the ice was actually a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. So when I decided not to go down the front, pretty much just committed to the original plan, which was to go fish the top of the system. And when I say top of the system, I mean nearly as far as you go in the Onk before you're hitting fresh water. And so I just skipped the middle section. A lot of people like to fish that middle section of the Onkaparinga because it can be productive. The biggest bags we've seen from our Onkaparinga rounds, out of all the rounds, came from that middle section. I think someone one year got 242s and then another close to 40. So this area is really productive, attracts a lot of people. So I had to pretty much just stick to the game plan, skip that entire section, and entered the section of Old Noarlunga, which has a rock wall on the left-hand side, which again is a really good spot for bigger brim and is where I caught my only and good enough brim last year to get second place. So fished that with a crankbait and I got a small fish pretty early on. So that was my icebreaker, but that entire rock wall didn't really fruit juice anything else. But it gave me the feedback that I was throwing the right sort of presentation, I suppose.
Sure. What hard body were you checking at him?
So I was throwing the in-feet rolling crank in the medium running, the Go Skill type color. That's the one that I've been playing around with recently in the Onk because crankbaits don't seem to be super popular by the locals down here. So I thought I'd give it a go. When I've been fishing with my father down the Onk, he's done well on crankbaits. So I was hoping that slow retrieve presentation, which I knew was going to be effective with the plastics, I was hoping that would translate to bigger fish with a crankbait. And it didn't work this time around. It has in other fisheries like West Lakes, but it didn't happen this time. But that was definitely the right color and the right retrieve to start catching brim.
Yeah. Okay. And was it typical in terms of like you're casting tight into the structure and then trying to bounce it off the structure, or?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's such a simple technique, but that's what you're doing. And I think the reason why I fished the crankbait rather than my 2.5 minnow that I will be fishing later was because I just did not want to be snagging up on the rocks. And I think anytime you've got a rock wall, the crankbait is probably the superior bait for it just because you're not going to spoil spots by snagging up and having to go in. And I do think that bigger fish tend to like crankbaits for whatever reason, unless the rattle is a little bit too much for them on the day. But yeah, that's why I picked the rolling crank for that exact situation.
Yeah, nice. All right. So you started off, you had one in the bag. Where'd you go from there?
I didn't have one in the bag by this time. It was too small. So I threw that one back.
Okay.
My true icebreaker, I suppose, is when I came round to the main section I wanted to fish, which was the upper Onk. By this point, you're starting to get a lot of forward timber, and you have you've got a steep cliff to one side of you, which has a lot of silt sediment, is what really is made up of. So it's really quite soft rock that the cliff is made out of, and within it, you've got a lot of inclusions of larger stones and things like that. So as it erodes, you end up with a slight rock bar on the bottom. And I think in the past, people have done a lot of work with trying to reinforce that area by putting in artificial, like that foreign stone, let's say. There. So what you end up with is a nice shallow rock ledge there. And so this is where I was catching my fish on pre-fish and where it was really consistent. So I'd switched to the 2.5 bait junkie minnow for this, and I fished the motor oil color, and that was on a 1/20th bait junkie jig head. And so that is the same as the crankbait, where you're doing those long casts along the edges and over these rocks and reeling it as slow as I possibly can, but not snagging up on the rocks. So as soon as I could feel it start to donk, you just feed it up or lift the rod tip just to adjust its position.
Yeah.
And that's where I got my first, and it came in at around 32 total length for that one.
Okay. And what time were you looking at now?
I think it would have been about 10 o'clock by this stage, maybe between 9 and 10. because I spent half an hour down the front, and then it took me a little bit less than an hour to get to the old Nollunga, and then I spent another hour fishing. So I used a lot of time up in the day, and I wish I had gone up earlier, but also kind of don't, because everything worked out in the end, right? So
Yeah,
I think it would have been beneficial, though, to spend more time up there straight away.
sure. Okay. And so what did you do then? Did you continue on with the bait junkies?
Yeah, so pattern was established. I knew what was going to work, so I just stuck with that, and very quickly found a bend where I picked up my biggest fish. And when that took the lure, you kind of get an idea from the start. I went, oh yeah, it could be good. Comes up and you see the belly on this thing, and I nearly squealed. I went, oh my goodness, I need to get this in the kayak. Like, I have to,
Yeah.
because pre-fish, I lost one similar sort of size, and I didn't want to do it this time around. Yeah, that was a little bit hard in the mouth fight because it wasn't pinned super well. And yeah, it fell into the net. And this thing, I don't know how long any of these fish were, because I wasn't messing around measuring them, but
Yeah.
I reckon that they had much bigger guts than what you would expect for that length, because they weren't long. They were just round. They're really fat.
All right. Okay. Just full.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. So we were at 2 fish now.
We're at 2 fish.
One good one and one okay one.
That's right. So good one. Happy with that. I wanted 2 more of those. But yeah, we just continue along this rock wall pretty much. I was fishing alongside Lee Kirshner, who was doing a similar sort of thing. And I was just fishing along this rock wall pretty much around this entire bend that's nearby these snags. And I managed to pick up the 3rd fish, which was weight off your shoulders sort of thing. And then soon after that, I hooked another one from underneath a brush, and it jumped out of the water, and I saw the size of it. I went, oh, geez, here we go. Like, we need to get this one in the boat now. Like, that's the one we need to win it, because I knew at the stage when we had the first 3 fish that, that's a good bag, but that's not enough to really solidify it. And once I landed that one, I think it was pretty much, I think we're pretty comfortable here.
Yeah, right. Okay. So at that point, they must have been pushing a kilo or around that sort of figure, I guess.
Yeah, so we definitely got 1.07 for that big one. And then the other 2 I think they were about 800 grams a piece.
Okay.
Because that's where I had caught another one after that, and it was 750, and I was putting that back. So,
No.
yeah, I was very happy for a change, putting a fish back in the water.
Yeah, that's right.
It was pretty comfortable.
Very good. All right. So did you drop any for the day? Did you miss anything you should have caught?
Well, this is the thing. I think when people win comps, it's one of those days where just everything goes right. You don't lose the fish. You don't get busted off. I got tangled in a snag really bad, actually, by one that was, maybe just legal. So it didn't matter at that point, but I still got that one out.
Yeah, right.
And, normally it's disappointment. You're losing fish, dropping them, and I just didn't have that all day. So
yeah, right.
It was just probably stars aligning as well. How it works.
Yeah, I do. And how many legals do you reckon you got for the day?
I think it was about 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. But they were all good, really. I was pretty happy with that.
All right. And with the bait junkie, I think you said, but what color were you running?
So I run the motor oil. It's the classic. We all know it works. So I fish 2 colors predominantly, and they're the popular ones. There's the bloodworm and the motor oil. I think with fishing, people overcomplicate things, and you definitely get good results when you complicate it and you really understand it.
Yeah.
But we know bloodworm and motor oil works.
Yeah.
So down the front of the system, I'll fish bloodworm. It does really well. As soon as I go up towards where you start to get that crossover between the salt and fresh, you get a lot of galaxias. And I think that's why motor oil works so well, is because it mimics a species of bait fish that is found just about everywhere. And plus, it's got that UV fluorescent look to it, especially in cloudy conditions. But that's the color I go to every time I'm pushing towards more tannin and more brackish water, let's say.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Very cool. All right. I reckon that pretty well covers covers all the fishing. The only thing we've left out is what sort of tackle were you running for the day?
Yeah. So for this round, so for the crankbait setup, it was the Infeet Z, I think it's the 742 ultralight regular. That thing's an absolute gun at casting these crankbaits out. It's pretty much like Steve Morgan says, you just let the rod do the work. It's really good for that job. And I run that with a Freed's 2000. But then for the Bait Junkie minnow, I just fish probably my favorite soft plastics rod, which is the 22 Infeet AGS LTD. Now that thing is 7'4" long. And what's really special about this rod, like, it's not only is it just super light, super sensitive because you've got the AGS guides, it's really, really fast. So it's got it's hard to describe. It's a stiff tip to it, but it's really precise. And so it punches these plastics really well and works them in a really interesting way. It's probably less important for slow rolling plastics, which is what I was doing because, you're just chucking it out and dragging it back. But when you're wanting to work plastics like flick baits and that sort of thing, it really comes into its own. And that was paired with a 2000 Caldia. And it's just a braid leader setup for that. And then it was fluorocarbon, 3 pound straight through for the crankbait.
The crankbait. Okay. All right. Well, that's all pretty nice gear. All right. For first place, what did you get to take home?
Lots of very generous vouchers from our sponsors. You have your usual cash prize, which I'm blanking on right now. But our sponsors do an amazing job at supporting these events. And I think everyone who participates in these are really thankful and understand the weight that it sort of carries, that they really make it very rewarding to come home first, second, third place with these things and just overall supporting the sport itself. So, yeah, phenomenal work that they do for supporting our events.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And look, in addition to that, is there anyone else you want to give a shout out to before we shoot off?
Yes, I will shout out to LXD Sunglasses because they're one of the sponsors I forgot to mention. I had a nice pair sitting in the pack that are very nice. I've given them a fair go with the little block out sections on the side. I think they're pretty neat for sight fishing. Shout out to Daiwa as always. They supply all my gear and that sort of thing. So happy to be with a company that has the gear that I'd already be using anyway. And it's just nice to be able to represent that brand. And of course, to the BMSA crew, I say it every single time, but it's really important. Without the work of these people, these events don't happen. And I think you're lacking the best tournament fishing scene in South Australia, especially for Bream. It's pretty much the only one. So really thankful that these people are putting in the time to make this thing work.
Mate, that is absolutely fantastic. And look, with the Angler of the Year, it's a very cool, kind of prestigious thing to win. So I want to say congratulations for that. And I look forward to seeing how you go in the next one in, what is it, the Port Adelaide River? Is that right?
Yeah, Port River. So we'll see how we go. It's not my most gun venue, but we'll see if we can turn that around.
That's right. You've got a few weeks to get down there and have a bit of a practice, have a look around.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Oh, very good. All right, mate. Fantastic to talk to you again. Congratulations, and hopefully we talk to you again soon.
Yeah, well, hopefully you're talking to me after Campton Haven telling me, how did you take out a win? Never catch a yellowfin in his life.
Oh, you never know, mate. You never know.
We'll see. I can dream.
Yeah, you can. Look, it's a great system. I think we're all looking forward to seeing what happens up there.
Very good. It should be good.
Terrific, mate. All right. Thank you. Good night.
Easy. See ya.
All right. So there you have it, everybody. 3 great interviews. Good to see Josh on top there. And yeah, as I record this, they've just had the final championship round. So the results are in for that one. I'm not going to give it away just at this point. A couple of things. So at the time of recording this, I've still got my Hobie Mirage Pro Angler 12 360 for sale. It's got a HDS 9 live on it. And I've also got an active target, which is not installed, but I do have it. I've put it together as a package. It's on Facebook Marketplace, so you can get it there or message me directly if you're interested. If it doesn't sell soon, I'm going to strip it down. I'm going to take the sounder off it and sell that separately, which will definitely be an option for someone that might be looking for that. Otherwise, if you're looking for a kayak that's already set up with a HDS Pro, HDS 9 Live, great sounder, great kayak. yeah, jump online, have a look. And one more thing with the collective, like I said, we've got live streams and stuff happening. We've got a couple of little projects going on, and I'm really excited about what the future holds for the Bream Fishing Project collective. So if you're interested, definitely jump on that. Otherwise, I'll talk to you next week on the Bream Fishing Project. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Hopefully you were informed, inspired and entertained. If you were able to learn something or just enjoyed listening, please consider subscribing and rate us on your favourite podcasting platform.